history of this sort of discussion has been sort of outlined, or whether you know any of the history associated with this. So I don't know, I think it was in 2018 that system was delivered to department. It was went through quite a rigorous sort of setup and development process, and then it was signed off basically at the end of 2018, and run through a set of system tests. Unfortunately, at that stage, what I think was problematic was that it wasn't taken into full production by department. So it was run through full testing procedures and stuff like that, but it should have actually been deployed in a production environment, and started running associated with that. So the system that was working was delivered, and I believe that it started to be used in production after the project ended. Subsequent to that, I don't know, I don't know whether there's 2 hacks or 1 hack, but there was compromise of the DWS IT systems, and it appears that the entire code and the backup of that code was lost from the systems at that particular stage. And I'm not quite sure what happened to the documentation, but the documentation should have also all been there. Anyway, subsequent to that, I think we were eventually contacted in, I think it was 2 years ago, so about 2024, and requested to assist on certain of these elements associated with that. And we were able to find, when we were requested, old system backup that was close to final deployed version, but there was no guarantees from our side that that was the final deployed version. We had, when we handed the system over, provided not only deployment onto the actual service at Department of Water and Sanitation, but we had handed over, I think it was 2 disks or hard drives that had the full deployment information and all the deliverables on them. Cornelia, is that correct? Was it 2 or 1? I can't remember.
It was 2, actually.
Okay, it was 2. So those were provided to department, and that was up and running. In 2024, we were requested to have a look at the system again and to provide some assistance. Like I said, we provided as much as we could. We've deployed all of the documentation that we had at our disposal, plus the last backup that we had on our side, onto, and gave that as a Google Drive and then sent that through to department. Now, I just want to manage some expectations over here, because that particular system, when it was deployed, was dependent, it had a number of dependencies with systems within the department itself. So there was an integration with the department's SharePoint system. So there's a SharePoint system at that stage. And there was also integration with eWoolats, I think was one of the others. And I'm not quite sure if there's an integration with anything else. Rudy, can you remember if there's any other integrations that were there?
I think there was. I can't remember offhand now.
Okay, there might have been with one of the water resource departments or something like that. Okay. Anyway, those dependencies, etc., need to be maintained, and if those dependencies are not maintained, then the system wouldn't work, because they need to be continually updated. Now, subsequent to our deployment and development, there must have been upgrades to both SharePoint and eWoolats and these types of things, and those integrations are not likely to work any longer, because those systems would have been advanced. Added to that, I think there's, that coding environment, etc., that was done on would have been quite an old coding environment. So it's unlikely that code is, I mean, it probably still works, but, these types of things progress and upgrade the whole time. I mean, so it's unlikely that the system that's we've sent through on the Google Drive, etc., will work immediately. It would need working to have a look at it. In terms of the actual structure of the system and the information that's available there, I believe that should be reasonably good. I don't see that processes, etc., would have changed massively in terms of that. So most of the user documentation and those types of things and the user requirements should still be very similar. So that's kind of where I see the system at the moment. When I originally had a conversation with Cynthia and I think it was Boy Tamalo, who were working at RDM at that stage in 2024, I did say to them that the system updating, etc., doesn't need to be done by us, because they had suggested that a project be implemented. And my suggestion to them is that we have a look through the system in some detail and then provide terms of reference for a project to update and get that system back into production. And that was the suggestion at that stage. And I would suggest that would actually probably still be the case, is have a small project which enables the definition of a terms of reference, which then can be deployed into a larger project for some sort of development group. I'd also sort of like to add to that presently my programming team is not as big as it was when it was part of DHI. So yeah, I mean, I don't know whether we could take on a project for an update like this of that complexity, and you might want to get one of your IT providers to do that. And when we handed the system over, the understanding was that I've forgotten whether it was BCX or Arivia or one of those contractors. I've forgotten who your main IT providers were, but they took it over and they were meant to maintain it. Okay. So I think that gives you the sort of history. So is there anything else that you would like to add there, Rudy, related to that?
I think you've summed it up basically. It's as I said, it's been a while since we've handed off this project. So a lot of things has changed since then in the department and in terms of programming. And so there might be a lot of change that needs to be done to get the system up and running again.
Okay. And then I think the final thing I'd just like to add to what Rudy said is Mahari Fresky, who's actually in department, he was headhunted by Department of Water and Sanitation. He works in the Water Resources Planning Department. He was actually the project manager on that particular project. So he is there and he has got quite a lot of knowledge of the system. And to my knowledge, was actually assisting you at some stage in terms of getting the system back up and running 2 years ago. So I'm not quite sure what the status is currently. So, my questions to you would be, what is the current status of the system? Was it deployed in the 2024 period? And what is the scenario with it now? And what is the status of all of the sort of documentation drives, etc., that we handed across? Those all lost, or they disappeared? What's happened with that SharePoint data breach and stuff like that? So I think I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Thank you for that background. I think it's very helpful. Maybe a short answer to what's happening now with the system. The system is not on production. We were trying to resuscitate the system internally. to see, actually not to resuscitate, but to find out what functionality are working and which ones are not working. But like you've indicated, there's multiple integration to this system. We have ArcGIS, with is using shape files. The old ArcGIS is also integrating to old SharePoint. I don't know if it's SharePoint 2010. We were trying to check this morning. And we also integrate with WORMS and EWLAS that you've indicated, but there's also WMS integration. But those integrations, some of them are still working, like the SharePoint one is working even to some extent. It's still saving the document in SharePoint, but the WMS integration is not working. It's giving us, so I think it's pointing to a function, but function that is sitting on Informix database, but we can't execute it from this system. And from WMS, no, from WORMS, the integration still works, although it's very slow. It's very slow when we try to execute. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's a stop procedure from the other side on WORMS. It takes very long to load. So yeah, that's the long and short of the system. Yeah, I can leave it at that for now. I don't know, Mr. Njesa, if you want to come in. Do we have questions, colleagues from DWS?
Yeah, maybe. Okay, maybe if I can just come in, I think from what Jason was saying, or rather proposing, is it looks like to me there needs to be some evaluation of the current status of the system in order to determine what is it that actually needs to be done. And I think that's my understanding of what he's saying. And then I probably gathered that he's also indicating that in terms of his organization, there's some resource constraints there in terms of the second part of, or on the second phase of the project, meaning that how do we take it into production? Am I clear on that? Is it that you can participate in the first part, like where we do a project to evaluate, but then on the second part, you don't have the capacity? That's what Jason there.
I think, yeah, it is correct to a degree. I mean, what we are suggesting is that we think that it's a good idea for you to do the system evaluation first up and then set a terms of reference. We may or may not bid on that terms of reference because we can obviously hire more people and these types of things. But yes, presently there would be a resource constraint. We're maintaining a number of systems at City of Cape Town, at Gaining Water, etc. So, our current capacity is restricted, but I think it would be a good idea to get basically an idea of, evaluate the system, evaluate what needs to be done, and then you can put it forward. So you could actually put it forward to, let's say, CETA, internal IT, or put it into an open bid. That would be the suggestion from our side, and then somebody can take it over and then take over the maintenance of that. And it may be us or it may not be us, but I think it's better to put that into a bid process once we've actually determined the requirements on the system and actually outline what's needed and what's not working. because it could be some simple updates and stuff like that, or it could be some stuff that is quite heavily involved, and it's difficult for us to tell that without evaluating the system first. And yeah, like Rudy said, is your coding frameworks and your infrastructure and your components that are available for your programming and stuff, like just the GIS information. Like I don't think it was integrated with ArcGIS, but it used ArcGIS shapefiles, etc., like you said. But that particular component, which was probably done on open maps or one of these types of things, could you might want to change some of those frameworks to the latest updates and stuff like that. And I think it's important that you get in a process that can be sustainable, so that people internally can maintain it effectively, so you don't end up in the same scenario that you're with at the moment. So your perception is mainly correct, but our suggestion is do an evaluation first, small project, get an idea of what's needed, and then take that forward into a proper process, either internally or externally.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Njeso, are you okay?
Yeah, no, I get Jason, and maybe I'm not sure. I don't want to ask also unanswerable questions as well, but you tell me if you can or you can't answer. But my engagement so far, there's been people in other quarters who are maybe looking at if the effort to revive the system as it is and put it on production is too high, or high in quote unquote, what would be the alternative, like, for the department? For instance, starting this development work again from scratch. Now, as a person, or as a company that has done this work before, I know that it was a multi-year project, and I suspect that there was even an extension to the project. The amount of effort to take it as it is now and put it on production versus starting from scratch. What is your feeling on that? Thanks.
So I think there's two elements associated with any sort of development that you're dealing with. One is kind of the overall sort of thinking related to this, and the business sort of analyst elements associated with that. So in this particular situation, there's a huge amount of documentation and thinking that has gone into the overall analysis of the system and the requirements associated with that. So a lot of the actual sort of background associated with outlining the business processes and underlining what's required is definitely there. I mean, there's masses of documentation that outline that, and in terms of the user requirements and even the user interfaces, etc. I mean, all of those designs are there, and that's one of the major components related to this. So even if you started a development, coding development from scratch, you've already got the required documentations from a user requirement to set that up. And so from that perspective, it shouldn't be that difficult to code. So, from starting from scratch, you're not really starting from scratch because you've already done all of the analysis associated with that. In terms of an extension, I don't think we had an extension. There was an extension that was discussed related to that, but as far as I remember, we delivered the system, and then there were certain discussions associated with that, and that work was taken over by whoever the IT provider for department was at that stage. Really, am I correct on that? And Cornita, can you just confirm that? Because I can't remember an extension. contract?
No, I can't remember extension either.
Yeah, so there was no extensions to that. Okay.
No, sorry,
then,
no,
yeah, I
I
mean-
can't remember either.
Okay, thanks. And then, yeah, I mean, just in terms of, the system as it is at the moment, again, I can't answer the related to how easy it is to get it back into a production setup. Like I said, the code is going to be old. The system is 8 years out of date. I mean, if you deployed a Microsoft Word 8 years out of date, you wouldn't expect it to work particularly well. And it's going to be a similar scenario with this. I'm glad that certain of the integrations are working. I'm surprised that they're working, but I'm very glad that they are. So, yeah, I mean, without evaluating the system and actually understanding what's required, which will take a bit of time, then, it's very difficult for us to answer those questions. So, and I think we can come back to you and say, well, this is revivable, this isn't recoverable. But it's also, we might also suggest that you use different components to what you're using currently in terms of the stuff that's there. I think really everything that was used on that system was all open software, so you could code it from anywhere. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think most of it is basically open source libraries, JavaScript libraries, open source code,
Yes.
stuff like that. I don't think there was any proprietary stuff there. No, not that I can recall now.
Okay, so anybody who's got open source access, etc., should be able to would be able to update and get the system going again. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Depending on, yeah, it should be able to. But yeah, as I said, the age of the software might make it difficult to do certain things. But technically, it should be able to run. It might not run very well, but it might run.
Okay, but some of the open source components that you use there would have been outdated or updated with new components that you would change. In certain cases.
Yes, in certain cases, it might be difficult to just update the open source just directly because there's a lot of stuff that changes in the meanwhile. But yeah, most of it you should be able to just use.
Okay.
Right. As you said, basically, the knowledge, even if you have to code it from scratch, the knowledge is already there. The use cases, the user requirements, everything is documented and well documented and laid out. So yeah, as I say, it's not really, if you need to code from scratch, it's not really starting from scratch. It's basically just redoing the application from scratch, which is a smaller part of the project.
Okay. I hope that sort of outlines your question. I hope we've answered it effectively.
Yeah. No. Thanks. I'm happy with the answer.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
So my suggestion would be that what we can possibly do is put a proposal forward to you to do a evaluation of the system and take that forward. And then once we've done that evaluation of the system, the outcome of that would be a terms of reference for larger development. And that terms of reference, then we would suggest that you then put out to open tender. And yeah, I mean, I don't know whether that would preclude us from bidding on it. So we would probably still be interested in that. But yeah, that's the suggestion at the moment, because it's very difficult for us to evaluate something that's been outdated and difficult for us to review those in terms of a full system integration without actually going and having a look at the implementation as it is and how it's deployed at department and what's working and what's not working.
All right, Jason, thank you very much for that. I don't know if the questions are we still have a clarity seeking questions from our side. Looks like I can't see the hands, but it looks like we are okay. But from what I'm taking from Jason, the next step for us maybe is to do that assessment of the system and to find out what components are still working, which ones are outdated. You've raised the issue of the framework, and also maybe even to sort of modernize the move maybe from monolithic approach into components-based approach, and also check the integration of all the systems that we've mentioned, the shape files that you refer to, and I also saw the high chart map that you also used on the system. You can relook at those. Yeah, basically all the integration with these other systems. And then from there, we can draft it. We'll be able to be in a position to draft the terms of reference. But what was not really clear for me when you were answering Mr. Njesa was the issue of saying, are we better off resuscitating the system, or maybe take what we have as documentation and develop a new system? But I guess your answer was saying the assessments will determine that. Will I be right by saying that?
Yeah, we want to do an assessment related to that. And, I mean, that assessment is going to take some time to do. It's not a simple matter. So, it would take, it's impossible for us to evaluate that system without dedicating a reasonable amount of time. It's probably going to take a month or two to do overall and test out different elements and stuff like that. So, to that effect, you would need to do an assessment before that, and to get a terms of reference defined from that. But I think it would be, that would be, it would be well worth spending that time and money to get that sorted, because I think that's where the variation is. So there might be, you might find that you can use 60% of the system, and you might need to program 40% of it, or you might find that you can use 80% of it and reprogram 20%, or you might suggest that you start from scratch. But that's kind of what you're looking at. There might be components that are working fine and that we can transfer code across very easily, and there might be other ones that are much more difficult and might require a new framework. So, for instance, like the GIS system that's deployed there, it may work, but you might want to use better setups. Things like high charts, etc., are pretty standard, and they're quite effective. So, it just depends. It really needs a proper evaluation and some time spent on it.
All right. Thank you again, Jason. I think that the timeline that you've highlighted also is going to assist us in terms of our planning. Yeah, from my side, I think I'm okay. I don't know if my colleagues, if there's any other clarity seeking question. or comment? Okay, with the absence of question, thank you again, Jason and colleagues for honoring this invite. It's given us the some sort of a clarity, and we will sit back and let you know what is our way forward from here. And that background really assists us, and thank you for coming through. And I'm also thank you for the information you have shared. I'm still going through. I went through some of the documents there, and I'm suspecting, I was with my colleagues, we were having a discussion, is saying some of this document might not be the latest, because when we were checking the checklist, some of the stuff were not done on the checklist, and we suspect that those documents were not the latest. Mr. Njesa, you can come through.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think the part that concerns me a little bit is the fact that I know that if you can request a proposal for this evaluation to be done, I think according to SCM rules, I think you would not then be, you would actually be excluded to bid because you'd have helped developing the terms of reference. And I'm asking myself now, and I'm, I didn't have to say this here, but it's like, where would the value be most spent? I think I heard you, Jason, that you might evaluate and then determine that, oh, actually you need this amount of effort to put it back into production and so on and so on. But that could be just one of the scenarios. I mean, you can also evaluate, do terms of reference, put it out on tender, and then maybe you don't find a person that can actually do that kind of work. And then also you also be excluded from participating in that process, as far as I know. So yeah, I think I'm just faced with those things, but maybe there are SCM issues to advise us on. But anyway, thanks for the meeting and the explanations that you've given. I think we also will take it back to business as well, just to inform them of what the outcome of the discussions that we had today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you, Mr.
good.
Jess. Yeah, come through, Mr. Jess.
I think just one other comment from my side of things is, again, is you have got an internal resource in department who used to work for us, Mahari Fresky, and he can also give you a background on that. I think he actually assisted in some of the things in the 2024 scenario. So it's worth getting his feedback as well. I would really suggest that you contact him and just chat to him about it to see what he thinks, because that would also be good. And obviously he's working at department now, so that would help you, I think, in understanding the sort of status of the system.
Can you just repeat his name again?
I will send you his contact card. That's
right.
And then you can. But it's Mahari Fresky.
Okay.
Thank you again. Yes, Jason, come through.
Yeah, so that's great. Thanks. Yeah, that's all I just wanted to mention.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to again, colleagues, thank you for honoring the invite. And this was fruitful for us. At least we've got a background. We'll definitely engage our colleague here, and I think he's the one who shared your contact details. We'll engage with him again, just to pave the way forward. And yeah, from our side, the department, we We're grateful that you are still able to come back to us and assist us in us getting this system back. And I think if there is no other any input, we'll have to declare this meeting over. And thank you again.
Super. Thanks very much. Look forward to working with
Okay.
you.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.